Welcome, everybody. Let's give a few more minutes for our colleagues to join us. So we'll start in just a moment or two. Feel free to start introducing each other. Thank you for getting the chat going and getting to know each other who's attending this webinar. Okay, I think we'll get started now. Welcome to today's webinar on data for immunization supply chain management. Just to let you know, we will be recording, or we are recording this session so that others who are unable to attend will be able to also see the webinar at their leisure. My name is Barbara Lamphere, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Bill Keogh. And Bill, take a few minutes to introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Just very briefly. I've been information technology and supply chain consultant for about 25 years. Joined John Snow relatively recently, and I'm delighted to be here with you all.
And as many of you know me, I'm Barbara Lamphere. I'm a senior technical advisor at JSI, and for the past 30 or more years, I have been working in supply chain management and organizational and individual capacity building in a number of technical areas across a number of geographies. It's great to see so many familiar names in the participant list and in the chat, and I welcome you all to today's webinar.
Okay, so this is the first webinar in a new series that's all about improving data use in the immunization supply chain. So this is the one that's kicking it off. You can see after that, there's one about tools and dashboards. There's one about triangulation to sort of optimize the immunization supply chain. There's one about practical applications of that same principle of triangulation. There's data technology specifically around cold chain management. And then finally, how do you use data in coordinated supply chain planning at the national level? We figured we'd start with data since everything else flows from the concept of data and quality data. So that's why we're starting off this series with this really critical topic.
Great, thanks, Bill. I also want to remind you, in addition to our webinar series, which is going on and which you'll receive additional information on in my follow-up email to you, that there's another webinar series that will be starting soon in just 2 weeks. And that is the WHO webinar series on temperature monitoring. Those are 5 webinars once a week for 5 weeks, getting really into the details of temperature monitoring, the tools that are used for temperature monitoring, and how to really use that data to improve your cold chain systems. So, but let's get started on our first webinar. I think Bill has some instructions for you.
Sure. So you guys have already been pretty good at introducing yourself, telling us where you're from. If you haven't already done that, please take a minute in the chat just to introduce yourselves to your colleagues. If you have questions during the presentation, feel free to just type them into the chat. But there'll also be some time at the end of the session for us to do Q&A with the panelists.
Great. Let's go over the objectives of today's webinar. Our first objective is to identify what data is needed for the management of an immunization supply chain and the sources of that data, and and to describe the relationships between immunization supply chain data, program data, and cold chain equipment data. We will also look at what parameters drive the frequency of data collection and what to do when there's too much data. And we will also discuss strategies for improving immunization data quality, particularly supply chain data quality. Just to summarize what we're doing today, we're going to look at data and data sources, the relationships between data, data quality, and data collection. And then we would welcome our special guest today, Harrison Mariki, who will be telling us about the vaccine information system in Tanzania, and he will also be demonstrating the system.
Okay, so to get started, when you think about supply chain data collection, the first thing you need to think about is, what am I trying to accomplish? Like, what are my objectives within the supply chain? What are my goals? What kind of decisions do I need to make to even get to those goals? And then thirdly, what kind of data do I need in order to effectively make those decisions? And there are a number of different challenges around those things. But at the end of the day, the reason you're looking at data at all is to try to improve your supply chain and service delivery in some way. So here's a specific example. Suppose you wanted to ensure product availability, and there's a lot of different objectives you could have. But think about the pieces of information that would impact that. So you have two objectives that are sort of rolled into one, right? You'd like to reduce waste and improve on-time delivery. Without those two things, obviously that impacts your product availability. And some of the data you might want to collect is not a comprehensive list, but this is some stuff you might want to collect. What's the accuracy of your inventory? If you're making decisions on inventory data that's not right, that could help with the problem of inventory availability. So what are the losses due to expiration? What about damage? And then for on-time delivery, the two main things you need to know is, when was it supposed to arrive and when did it actually arrive? So at this stage, you want to figure out, what am I trying to accomplish? And then what are the pieces of data that will help me make better decisions?
So many of our decisions in immunization programs and in immunization supply chain come down to these basic information needs: our ability to register receipts, issues, and physical stock on hand, our ability to record reorder based on historical consumption data, to keep track and have visibility of stock at all levels in the system, and to access and analyze historical information, particularly when we're looking at a longer range forecasting, and our ability to report immunization coverage. So what we really need the data for is to make these basic decisions and to be accountable for the products in the system.
Okay, so we're all probably familiar with this, right? The 6 rights. These are the right things you need to do in order to make your supply chain work properly. So the first one is, you have to have the right product, and then you need the right quantity of the product in the right condition. If the product is damaged, you might as well not even have it. The stuff has to be delivered to the right place at the right time and at the right cost. And as you are all familiar with, this is pretty challenging to do all these things at the same time. When you think of data, you can think of this in a similar way, right? You need the right data to be available to make good decisions. You need the right quantity, you need the right condition, you need the data in the right condition. And we'll talk about that in terms of data quality in a minute. You need data to be in the right place. What system should it be in? It needs to be timely, again, a data quality thing. And also, you need to have the data at the right cost. If it costs you much more to acquire the data than the benefit you could get from it, then you need to think about how much sense that makes. So I think at this point, we have a poll we'd like to kick into. Isn't that right, Barbara?
Yep, we do. So we'll launch our first poll. And here's question number 1. Which of the following data do you collect on a routine basis to manage your immunization supply chain? Please feel free, it's multiple choice, answer which data items you routinely collect. Just give it a minute or a few seconds more. Okay, I think we'll end the poll there. And we'll share the results. Bill, do you want to comment on these?
Sure. Stock on hand and rate of consumption, obviously those are absolutely critical if you want to be able to provide the service level you're thinking about. Losses, I assume losses includes waste too. So you see 2/3 of the folks there. Other highlights: refrigeration, doses of each vaccine given, that obviously pretty important. And then number of children by age group. Again, you're segmenting the population to figure out what you should deliver with them. So yeah, that's great. Very interesting information.
Yeah, I'm glad to see those 3 essential data items are really right up there for those 3 essential data items, particularly for supply chain management. And so let's go on and talk about some of the data that's required for immunization programs and for immunization supply chains. So to effectively manage your immunization program, these are some of the data, and most of you are capturing these data items. You're looking for, in the programming sense, what is our coverage? What do we need to get the coverage that we need? And are we actually meeting our targets for serving the clients that we need to serve, that we want to serve, to effectively deter any of the diseases that are immunizable. So these are the kinds of data we collect to manage the immunization program itself. Now, let's take a look at some of the data items that we need to manage our immunization supply chain. And I like to think of these data in terms of the data we need for the routine day-to-day operations of the supply chain, as well as then data requirements for monitoring the performance of the system. So on a routine basis, we would collect these things, and we saw in the poll that everybody, almost everybody universally, is collecting stock on hand data, which makes sense when you're managing a supply chain. And when you use that data with the stock on hand data with, say, rate of consumption, we can really know parameters such as how many months of stock we have on hand. It's also important that we collect loss data, not only to help us be sure that we reorder and redistribute product to cover our losses, but that we also can identify why are there losses. Are these planned losses? Are these losses due to wastage or improper storage conditions? We compare loss data with things like cold chain temperatures, vaccine monitor status, and other things to look at our wastage rates so that we can make some supply chain improvements. So data that we may collect for evaluating the performance of our supply chain include data to inform indicators. These indicators, the 7 indicators listed here, are the DISC indicators that we have spoken about in previous webinars on supply chain performance management. We want to have the data so that we can evaluate, say, the functional status of the cold chain equipment. Are we having fully product available? Are we having full stock availability? Are we having on time and in full deliveries? And these indicators, based on the data that we collect, can help us identify where we need to make improvements in our supply chain management and the performance of the supply chain. Let's spend a few minutes talking about data sources. And many of you, those of you who are working already in immunization programs, very well know the sources of data that are collected at the facility level, the facility being the primary data collection point for our information about consumption. What are the number of vials that we are of product, or the number of doses of each vaccine that are given. And those kinds of data would be recorded on our immunization registers and our tally sheets in some cases. Those are important data items, as well as certain data collection is done on stock on hand, on stock cards at every level of the system where product is stored. So these facility level data reporting forms are very important initial sources of the data. And then that data, of course, is reported in reporting forms, such as that one that's visualized here on the slide, that are moved back up the system, so that those primary data, the stock on hand, the doses, number of doses given, and so forth, that data is moved up to levels in the system, either to make resupply decisions or performance decisions, to make decisions about managing the system. Many of these data tools, these data collection tools, are paper-based. Some of them are Excel-based. And we'll be talking about some of the ways of collecting and moving data when we look at some of the other forms and tools during our next webinar, as well as when we'll look at the vaccine immunization information system that is used in Tanzania. These are two very familiar stock keeping tools that the stock management tool, the SMT, that you're familiar with, and the district vaccine data management tool, which are both Excel-based tools and are a good source of data for decision making. The data we collect goes into these tools, but these tools also provide us with additional information and some analysis. 41 countries are currently using the WHO vaccine stock management tool to manage data at national and subnational levels. Currently mostly in Excel, but are now being developed into, or have been developed into, a web-based tool, which we will talk about in the next webinar. And we'll see some of the advantages of going from an Excel-based tool to a web-based tool in those cases where it's possible to use a web-based tool to manage stock data.
Okay, so data, there's a lot of data out there, as everybody knows, and there are a lot of data sources. And the question of what data should I use, but where does it come from, are both pretty important. So what is called in sort of IT, where does the data live? Like, where is the point where we have accurate data? Because sometimes data can be in more than one system, and sometimes it's not the same. And so that's a data quality issue that we'll talk about in a minute. You can read the list of sources there: DHIS2, temperature, wastage. I mean, there's a lot of different tools out there. The last one is paper forms, and we'll talk about data quality in a minute. But one of the issue with paper forms is you got to make it electronic if you want to do anything with it. Very hard to analyze 100 pages of paper forms. When you do that, though, someone has to enter the data from the form into, say it's Excel or say it's a system. And this is a place where big data quality problems come from. It seems surprising, but I think I saw a study a while ago that, like, the average number of errors in manual keystrokes, it's like 1 in 400, I think, which doesn't sound like a big deal until you enter for current inventory 70, and you really mean 700, or vice versa. So paper forms, there's a lot of challenges associated with that. The other thing I'd like to talk about is a concept called granularity. And granularity means how finely do you capture the data about whatever it is, about your inventory, for example. So as an example, suppose in your operation, you capture inventory at the case level. This is just an example. And suppose somewhere else, it's captured at the unit level. It becomes hard to compare those things in units because one place has units, another one doesn't. Another example might be if one facility captures information weekly, the other facility captures information daily. It will be impossible to look at both of those facilities and do analysis of what's going on a daily basis because only one of them captures it at that level of granularity. So it's an important concept.
So all this data that we collect, usually we would manage that data and use it to make decisions, and we use different tools to help us manipulate that data and manage that data. So here's an example of one of those tools, of the vaccine volume calculator that you're probably familiar with. It helps us estimate the national cold chain equipment needs and dry store requirements. And it's used to assess those needs and to forecast future needs. And we'll talk more about this, but the quality of the data going into the tools will affect the quality of the kinds of decisions that we make. And so it's really important that we focus on quality of that data. And Bill's already talked about some of the problems with moving from paper data into a electronic tool, and if the paper and the possibility of making quality errors in that transfer of data. So, but it's important to know that we have these tools, and that the tools using that data help us make those decisions. They provide us with a way of analyzing that data. And when we talk in our next webinar, we'll talk specifically about some of the tools that are available for you. And we will see some examples of this in the demonstration of the VIMS tool in a little bit.
Okay, so one of the things when you're trying to make decisions from a supply chain perspective, number one, we talked about you need to know what you're trying to accomplish. Number two, you need to know what sort of data is probably relevant to help me make this decision. And then number three, what's the relationship between these pieces of data? So if you look at the shortages, for example, right, and everybody captures this data practically, you need to know what's my consumption and what's my stock on hand, like how much do I have? Think about this for a second, though. What happens if you're having significant shortages all the time? But when you look at your data, it says consumption and stock on hand are pretty much in line. What are you supposed to conclude from that? Well, the main conclusion is there must be a data quality or a process problem somewhere, because I can see in real life I have shortages, and when I look at my data, everything's supposed to be great.
I think we have another poll. So
oh yes, I'm sorry.
Let me go to the next poll. And the next poll is going to be about the kinds of challenges that you face in managing your immunization supply chain data. So if you take a moment, please, and answer the following question: which of the following have been data challenges in managing your immunization supply chain? Just one more moment. Okay, I think we'll end the poll now and share the results. And it looks like that the majority of the problems really revolve around quality, inaccurate data, and missing or incomplete data, which are both data quality problems. And we'll spend a few minutes now really delving into what we can do about data quality and how we can overcome that challenge. So I'm going to stop sharing the poll. Thank you for your participation, and we will move on to talking about data quality.
Yeah, great. So that poll is a great segue, right, into the whole, because most of those, except for the access ones, most of those are issues about data quality, right? No one has no challenges, right? That's real life. But in any event, if you're going to take a look at your data quality, there's a number of different attributes that you need, and you need all of them for the data to be actionable, where you can be confident that the decisions you're making are going to line up with reality and help you get where you want to go. So the first attribute of data quality is accuracy, right? So is this information correct in every detail? You need accurate information to do pretty much anything from an analysis perspective. The second one is completeness. Like, so I have this data, but does the data capture everything I need to understand? Imagine if you did inventory accuracy, but only looked at half your inventory, right? That doesn't help you. The other half could be in terrible shape. Reliability is the third one, right? So does the information I have, does it line up with other sources, or does it contradict them? If it contradicts them, probably something is wrong, right? The next one is relevance. And we talked about this earlier, right? Do you need this information to make a decision or not? If it's not relevant, don't look at it. I mean, we know you have enough data without thinking about stuff that's not relevant. Timeliness is really important, right? If you're only capturing data, if you need to make decisions about what's going on daily, but you only capture it every 3-4 days, you're going to have trouble doing that. I actually worked at a warehouse one time in the Dominican Republic, where at the beginning they were capturing all the inventory movements on clipboards, on pieces of paper. And when I went there, I would see the clipboards like behind pallets and that kind of thing. And the information was entered like every 3 days into their enterprise system. And the data after 3 days, by the time it got in there, it was wrong. So timeliness is pretty important. And then the last piece is consistency. So if this data lives in more than one place, does the data sync with one another? Does it line up? Is it the same? And is there some way that data gets updated on a regular basis? So this data quality thing, everyone talked about these challenges, and this is a big one. Okay, so great. So we all have data quality problems. What can you do about it? So the first thing you need to do is look like, do I have a data quality problem at all? And how serious is it? Is it kind of serious? Is it massively serious? And you can decide how serious it is based on to what extent does this impact the service levels that you want to deliver. So assessing the quality is really important. One instance where you maybe have poor data quality is when no one owns it, right? It's a good idea to say, Bill is the person who owns data quality. So when the data is not right, I know exactly who I should talk to. And it's not saying it's my fault necessarily, but I'm the person who can analyze this and who can hopefully get to the root cause and fix it. Capturing data in a standardized format. If you have an Excel sheet, let's all use the same Excel sheet. And it would be great if we could do that all across all the facilities so it's easy to roll up. Let's not use one Excel sheet and then a different format that somebody else created, and then we have some paper. You can see those things create large challenges across all the dimensions of data quality. Just think of timeliness being one. So you want to have repeatable processes, right? So data collection shouldn't be something you do if you have enough time. Data collection should be something you do as part of the process every single day. You don't say, I don't have enough time to do data entry, because if you don't, the quality of your data, the quality of your decisions is going to go way down. And then think about, do I have some data quality standards for my facility or for my organization in general? That would be a good thing to know. You need to know the quality of your data first before you can establish standards. But having standards that everybody agrees on, especially as you start to make decisions higher and higher up the supply chain, is critical.
Great. And you have this great piece of advice in your blue box.
Yes, I do indeed. Forgot the big blue box. Having a system and then getting people to use it regularly is a really important thing in improving data quality, because having one system as opposed to 8 systems is really, is a place where you have the data lives in one place, so to speak. And usually, and we all know this, right? When we have to change the way we do our job, we have to put things in new systems, usually it's a little confusing, it can be kind of a pain, but there's a learning curve to that. But if you're gonna use one system, like we'll see later, there's some amazing benefits. And once people start to realize those benefits, usually it's much easier for other people to get on board. Thanks for the reminder there, Barbara.
So continuing on this idea of data quality, and referring back to one of the points that Bill made, was that if you use data, people who use data tend to therefore value data, and then when people value data, that data becomes more accurate because people are seeing how important accurate data is and timely data is to make decisions. And one way of doing that is to encourage data use through data review teams. Sometimes now they're called data performance teams, because a lot of the work that a data review team does, or data performance team does, is to encourage data use to help improve supply chain performance. We talked about data review teams in a previous webinar on managing immunization supply chain performance. And I will link that particular webinar on our follow-up email to you. But these teams are groups of people that are trained to set targets, to use that data to inform key indicators, and to monitor performance, and then not just monitor it, but discuss the causes of those problems, and to make decisions, operational and strategic decisions, to improve the performance of the supply chain. So what we found in the outcome of having these data review teams is that these teams help build the necessary skills for analyzing and using data. The more you use data, the better you get at analyzing it. And you also build confidence in that data. The other thing that we've found, that by having data review teams and using the data on a routine basis and conducting data quality checks during analysis and flagging inaccuracies, you improve that data quality. In addition, these teams strengthen the use of data for operational decisions and for identifying weaknesses in the system. And what this does is it triggers a virtuous cycle of demonstrating how data can be successfully used, and it increases the demand and motivation to use data by continuously using it. The more you use it, the more you want good data, and the more that you'll be able to make good supply chain decisions with that data. And by contributing to improve, these team actions all contribute to improving data visibility, to improving stock availability, and reducing wastage, because as you're using your data more, you're going to be able to identify these problems and to be able to take action to improve product availability and to reduce wastage.
Okay, so let's suppose you've looked at your data quality, you've kind of improved it. There becomes a question of how often should you collect this data? And this decision is sort of important because collecting data takes at least some time, unless there's technology that completely manages the whole thing with barcodes and all that, and even that takes some time. But so when you think about how often should you collect your data, well, what's your objective? If I want to analyze something on a monthly basis, do I need to collect it every day? Maybe you do, because if you want to someday analyze it on a daily basis, you have it. Should I collect the data every 15 minutes? Probably not. But this comes back to this concept of granularity. Usually a higher, a lower level of granularity, more detail is better, because you can always go up. You can't go down. When you capture something on a monthly level, there's no way to go back and figure it out on a daily level. An example might be needing data about stock status, right? So you can determine how much needs to be resupplied, because the frequency of stuff being resupplied is going to drive the frequency at which you need that particular data. So another issue here, and I think we've all started to run into this, is the proliferation of data. I think I read that there is 50 times more data in the world than there was 10 years ago. And I think very clearly that's going to become more of a problem, not less. So when you have this problem of too much data, what should you do? Well, we come back to the beginning. What do you want to accomplish? The second one is, what's relevant? What pieces of data are relevant for the objectives I specifically have? And then we talked about relationships among data. If you look at a couple data elements and go, I'm not sure how those things are related, they're probably not, or at least probably not in a way that's going to be meaningful for you. That's one of the things about artificial intelligence, right? Artificial intelligence starts to surface relationships that people can't find out. But for the moment, let's not worry about artificial intelligence. And so once you analyze, you understand the data, and you understand how it relates to one another, it should help you build some kind of performance management metric. It could be on-time delivery, inventory accuracy. It could be many, many things. But having a metric is important, right? Because you say, I want to hit 85%. And if you have good data and you're always hitting 75%, that tells you here's an improvement opportunity. The data will actually point you in the right direction. And then hopefully you have reporting tools available. Like on paper, not so much, but even in Excel, right? If you have decent Excel data, there's a lot of ways to represent that in charts, graphs, that kind of thing. And that helps people understand sort of where am I at in a visual basis, which is important. Okay, so finally, sort of how does all this relate to kind of your big national level systems or high level supply chain systems? Well, at the end of the day, the data needs to come from the point of use, right? Because that's what drives everything else. So you can have a push model where I just say, here's how many you get. And I know that exists a lot of times. There are a lot of advantages, though, to having data captured at the lower level. And so we can imagine, let's suppose there's no paper, it's a great world, and everything gets entered into an Excel sheet at the facility level. And it's the same Excel sheet, that would be even better, right? It's the same Excel sheet with the same fields and the same formats over all the facilities. You could take this Excel sheet and then roll it up to the next level, the regional level. The data quality thing comes back here, though. If I only roll it up every 3 months, is that timely data? Probably not. Can I make decisions on data that's 3 months old? Maybe you can. It depends on the decision. But from there, too, you could take all the regional data and, again, roll that up to the provincial level and then roll them up. So ultimately, you have one data set that's feeding the system that is running the supply chain decisions sort of across the board. But you do have a lot of these same questions about reliability, timeliness, accuracy. If you don't have those things at the lowest level, at the facilities level, you're going to have a series of small problems. When that data gets up to the national level, you're probably going to have a series of large problems. And, Excel is not bad, but there are more unified tools that are even better. And you're going to hear something about those. Because, as you know, it's impossible to make good decisions if you have bad data. So anyway, we've talked a little bit about the Excel-based approach. Let's go into a little bit about the actual applications of all these principles we've been talking about.
Great segue. Thank you. And I'd like to introduce Harrison Mariki, who is a health supply chain management expert who's worked with JSI and in supply in Tanzania, and is one of the architects and masterminds behind the vaccine information management system, VIMS. And he's going to tell us about the VIMS system in Tanzania. And welcome, Harrison. Harrison, I hope you're with us.
Yes, I am. Hi, Barbara.
Great.
Hi, Bill.
Hi.
Hi.
So,
Hi, everyone.
so welcome, and I'm going to run through your slides, and then Harrison's going to talk to us about VIMS and then give us a demonstration of VIMS. So please go ahead and tell us a little bit about VIMS.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. Thank you for that introduction. Most of the tools that Bill talked about, we also were using them. So the Excel-based systems like the stock management tools, the DVDMT, the cold chain inventory tool. These are some of the tools that we were using. And at one time, I think it was 2014 EVMA assessment. The country decided that they wanted to go to a web-based information system. And so we integrated these three tools and developed one tool, which is the vaccine information management system. We'll be able to capture all these data elements just in one place. Just simplify that path to this data in terms of collection and usage. So having all the logistics data, routine data, and also the cold chain inventory data in one place. That was our goal, and this was has been done for the past few years, and currently the system is countrywide. So it has simplified reporting and data visualization, and also has quite easy to use dashboards that are helping the decision maker at different levels of the supply chain, like Bill showed earlier on. So this also has helped with data. It's okay, you can move on to the next slide. So in terms of like the data sources and how we are capturing the information, there are several ways. One, some facilities are using monthly, those paperwork, so monthly information, immunization reports. So that will be entered at a step higher. So they'll be entered at the district level by the district immunization vaccine officer. Some facilities, and I think around 50 to 60%, already have the immunization registry in their facilities. So we are capturing that data through integration. We also have remote temperature monitoring devices in majority of the facilities, around 75% now. I think by the end of the year, it will be 100% of the country with remote temperature monitoring devices. And so we have linked the RTM with the information management systems and able to capture that also. We have integrated with DHIS2 to make sure that we have the same data in both systems to avoid parallel reporting. So VIMS is very operational system. Apart from that, we also looked at the business processes and managed to also develop some warehouse management modules at the central level, and capturing that from like when we get the advance shipment notice from the suppliers on what will be coming in country. So we usually capture that. It's very important for us because most of the vaccines are imported. So once we get that information of what is coming in, we update it in the system, and then when the shipment arrives, we'll just do data quality checks, check the VVM and update, and be able to generate a vaccine arrival report that is needed by UNICEF, who's the procurement intelligence. Let's move to the next slide.
Harrison, I know we have a lot of subjects to get through, and we want to see the demo. Could you talk about just data quality? How have you ensured, you've got a lot of systems there. How do you ensure or analyze or improve your data quality? Maybe we go back to the previous one.
Yeah, so a couple of ways. One, for instance, by doing the like removing the Excel tools and moving to the web-based tool. What we have managed to do is make sure that the data entry is done just at one level, so it's the facility level, or like in place where the district immunization officer is helping, then it's just that one place. So avoiding those duplications of data reporting across levels. So once it's entered in one level and the others is just aggregation, the system will aggregate for a particular level and give them their performance. So
Fantastic.
that helps.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, the other is like moving more again towards like digital. So like they also the RTMDs. And interestingly, we are still like looking at both the temperature data that is shared by the facilities on their monthly forms and comparing that with what the remote temperature monitoring devices are sending. And the results are very interesting sometimes. And then you can see the importance of sometimes automation. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
So in terms of the flow, I think the immunization programs across many countries is very similar. That you have the service delivery points, and then you have the subnational levels, and then you have the central vaccine store. Then usually whether the country procures themselves or like through an agency like UNICEF, but that usually is just a flow of information, but the products usually will come from the manufacturer, arrive at the port, and then move straight to the central vaccine warehouse, which is what is happening in Tanzania. So the traditionally information has been flowing usually unidirectional from the lower levels moving up most of the time with the Excel tools. But with the web-based tools now, we are able also to send information downwards. The facilities are able to get their performance reports, and also because it's a stock management tool, so we are able to send, like when I'm sending the distribution to a facility, I can send that also what vaccines they should be expecting to receive. And once they receive, they can just do a confirmation in the immunization registry, and the proof of delivery will return to VIMS. So in terms of the different roles, we have the district vaccine officer, the regional vaccine officer, and the central level staff, which is the managers at the immunization vaccine development program, and the officers there. So those are the main roles, and this is important that you see maybe during the demonstration that we have different visualizations for different levels.
Great. So Harrison, you have different people in different roles, and how have they used VIMS to improve supply chain performance? How have they used it for root cause analysis and looking at performance?
Yeah, so especially for these levels mentioned here, VIMS is both a reporting collection, but also it's a operational tool. So because and it has indicators that are beyond just supply chain. So for instance, if you are seeing stockouts, or perhaps you are seeing low coverage, you are able to cross-check and correlate those data. Like, is the low immunization coverage also is it due to stockouts that were previously there, or were there outreach sessions conducted as planned? So those information really help in terms of root cause analysis before you move into like going to submissions. You are able to do some analysis within the system before you move ahead to go to do the actual like maybe supportive supervision field visits to the facility. So you can do some root cause analysis prior to moving to them. Investing in going to a facility only to find out you could have used data and find out.
Exactly. Great, good. I know you're going to demonstrate a lot of this in your demo, but I see you have some of the workflows to share with us here. Do you want to go straight into the demo or go through it here?
I could talk a bit about this. So like I mentioned earlier on, we combine the three tools. So we have all the three pathways. So if you want to have your data for your cold chain equipment, for instance, we are keeping the inventory of all the cold chain equipment in the country and their status. Once you know you have the inventory, then you can do other calculations in terms of the volume, the capacity, the country, the region the facility has. So if, for instance, you want to introduce a new vaccine, you are able to assess your inventory and know how how capable you are or whether you need to improve your cold chain. The other part is the routine immunization. So every month for those facilities which are using paper-based, so we'll enter the facility form. You're able to see the timeliness of the reports that are there. We have, after removing the role of data entry from the higher levels, we've put in some approval role for those levels so that they could review the data and they approve. And once the report is approved, like Bill said, so we've just assigned some people with the role of reviewing the data. So once they approve, then that is locked as the official report. And so it helps into making people accountable, into following up with the facilities to make sure that the data is of quality. In terms of the stock management tool, and I think this is the difference between the VIMS and the ELMIS. So when a bit of history, when we started developing VIMS, we worked on the ELMIS and customized it to the immunization program. So we didn't start from zero. We started from what the ELMS was and added a few features which were important for us. So it has demand forecasting. You're able to do your ordering, you're issuing, receiving stock. You're able to do those physical counts and adjustments within the system. And also like have visualizations that the program managers in the immunization can relate to. So that was what we did with the VIMS customizations, and those are the main workflows that we are able to support: the stock management, the routine immunization, and the coaching equipment.
Great. Well, we're anxious to see it. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to open it up for you to give us a demonstration of the VIMS system. So great. I see there are some questions that have come in, and Wendy Prosser has been very kind to answer some questions. And if we don't get time to answer any additional questions, we will do that in our follow-up email. So Harrison.
All right, let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes.
All right. So if you are familiar with the ELMIS, the one that is the developed from the Open LMIS system, you'll be a bit familiar with the window that is shown here. So because of the color themes, and also because this was developed in that open source Open LMIS, and then customized to the country's needs, and specifically customized for the immunization program. Like I mentioned earlier on, we tried to capture all the three tools. So we have the routine immunization section, we have the stock management section, we have the cold chain section. Additionally, when we moved into remote temperature monitoring devices, so we have that. We have the dashboard, and then we have a report section, which is customized reports for the users. And this dashboard is on the home page. And so maybe I can just begin by talking a bit about data. So I'll start with the dashboard so that you're able to see the different data that we are collecting to manage the supply chain. So when the user logs in, the first thing that they'll see is the status in their own store. So currently I've tried, you see, I'm at a national view. So I'm using like a demo version of the national view for you to see. The first thing, it will show me the status of my stock at the national level at my warehouse. And the different color codes help to know where you, like, what's your status. So right now, BCG shows we have like close to 7 months of stock at national level. Rota, you can see like it's around 3 months. So the color changes based on the months of stock. So when they run low, below maybe 1 month, based on the minimax store, minimax levels that were set by the country, it will change. As you can see, once it goes red, it means you have less than 1 month of stock. And by hovering here, I can see exactly how many those are. So this is the status of my own store. And we have simplified the ordering process. So if I want to take action, I just have to click here, order now, and it will take me to the window where I could just place the order immediately to like ask for resupply. The other part that I wanted to show is now moving now to the lower levels. So now I've seen the stock levels at my national level. Now I want to see what's the status in the lower level. So this is just a demonstration of how what that looks like. So I can see like there is the stock condition is around 11%, and then 55% it shows like a running low. So that indicates that some action needs to be done at regional level. But if I wanted to go deeper to find out what antigens were causing that, or what regions were contributing to most stockouts, or most they were most understocked, I could just click on this donut and I'll be able to go. It will open up another window below, and you could see like which store is contributing more to the stockouts and which maybe antigen or product is contributing to that condition. So I clicked on the low. The same if I clicked on the red, I could see which ones are contributing to that level. So it's just a snapshot, like a quick overview snapshot of how the conditions are across the different stores. So that is that regional level. This is now the next level, which is the district level. The same, I could do the same analysis, and then I'm able to like see what the conditions are and how I can intervene. Moving on to the facility level. So the same, we're doing the same analysis, and usually at facility level, we try to focus mainly on the monthly report forms that are coming every month. So while the other regions are more real time, because VIMS is used as a management tool at the facility, at the regional store, at the district store, and the store. So you are able to get real time because you have access to all the stores ledgers across the country. In those levels. At facility level, we are referring to the data that we capture at the end of the month. So we can see what the status is at the end of the month, like how many facilities maybe are understocked, how many are overstocked, how many are within the minimax. So that also helps. Again, if you click on that, it will give you the exact facilities. And this, for instance, is showing for BCG, but I could filter out and choose another antigen the same way. So it helps to, in terms of following up. So if I've seen a condition, maybe I'll stock out for a certain antigen, I can go to the lower levels and see what that condition was in that month, or like what was the trend over time. Yeah, let me just try and this aside a bit and see if I could change something and see if maybe let me take, because I'm using the training instance, so it doesn't have enough data. Let me just pull out a few 4 months old data so that you could see. Okay, so this, for instance, at national level, I could see how the trends are for the different antigens that are given, or vaccines that are given at different age groups, so that you can follow up to see if there is any dropout. You are able also to look at the regions on the map and just see where you need to focus, for instance, for your supervision. I know that maybe I need to do something in these regions and this one, so you can easily focus there. This also gives a lower, in terms of the lower levels, like the district level, which are more, so we didn't put that in the map. For that one, we just kept this way, so you could see also again the distribution of the districts, how many in the red condition, how many are in the yellow condition, and then if you click here, you could get access to like the list of those districts that you need to again like supervise. So the system helps you to break down. Again, I think most of you are familiar with the performance monitoring charts. So like if you wanted to know like how you are going compared to your targets, so I think the performance monitoring chart is common across many immunization programs and usually found at different levels. So that's also available in the system to be able to see how the country is performing, but also the other regions. So I think I've taken enough time. Let me stop there.
Thank you, Harrison. That's a wonderful demonstration of all of the functionality, and I can see a lot of different kinds of supply chain decisions that can be made using this this tool. And I'm sure that we could spend another hour or two talking about benefits and challenges and lessons learned in implementation, but unfortunately we've come to the end of our hour. If anybody has any questions for Harrison about the VIMS tool, I'll be sharing some, I'll share his contact information with you in the follow-up email, as well as some other information about the tool itself and the other information resources that were used to develop this webinar. So thank you all for joining us today. We have reviewed what data is needed, how to improve quality of data, some of the actions you can take, some strategies for that, what to do if there's too much data. I see that there have been some questions that have come in, and Wendy has kindly answered those questions. We will also share those questions. Oh, there's one question that's still open. Oh, thank you for the demonstration. Is VIMS a separate platform, or is it based on DHIS2? And I think it is, while it uses data that comes from DHIS2, it is a separate platform. Am I correct, Harrison? I hope, yes. I'm pretty sure Wendy's answering that question as well. Yeah. So
yes, correct. That's correct.
Yeah, it's a separate one. And we will share the questions and the answers with you in the follow-up email. So if you didn't get a chance to see them during the webinar, you'll have a chance to review them. So in that follow-up email, you'll be getting the recording of this webinar, the slides, the questions and answers, and information about future webinars. Our next webinar will take place on November 23rd, and during that webinar, we will talk about data tools, dashboards, and digital technology for immunization supply chains, and we hope you will join us for that second webinar. Just a reminder that anyone who attends 5 of the 6 webinars in the series, either live or recorded, is eligible to receive a certificate of participation. Thanks so much for joining us today, and have a good rest of your day and evening. Take care.
Thank you all.
Harrison. Thank you, Bill. And we'll see you next.
Thank you all.